So as we talked about in the beginning, part of this course is to learn more about the rules of racing. And if you are preparing for an umpiring exam, to understand what the requirements are. And some of these things will come up in the umpiring exam, but it's also important to know. So this presentation is over the technical installations and regatta courses and provide an overview of that. We're going to go basically through the introduction. We're going to go through a regatta course, the start zone, between the start and the finish, control commission, and then other requirements required of courses. World Rowing defines essentially two levels of courses. One is a Class A course, which meets all of the requirements to be a championship level course. Then there's the Class B courses, which are ones that are maybe lacking in one of the aspects, but they are still good courses that can be used for international regattas. In general, the length of racing should be 2,000 meters straight. And before I go in, what we're defining here is the traditional flat water rowing. There are other requirements for coastal, beach sprints, indoor. Those are found in the requirements for those are found in the appendices are 11 through 20, which deal with this event specific regulations. So what we're going over here is the traditional flat water rowing that we will cover in this presentation. So for the length of course, 2,000 meters straight, ideally with 120 meter run out at the end. And this is for the World Championship, World Rowing Cups, Olympics, and other international regattas for both the men and the women, for the U19, U23, and lightweight, and Paralympics also. For the Masters, the course is 1,000 meters with 150 meter run out. Other events may have shorter or non-straight courses. And while we say that 2,000 meters is a standard course, we do allow, especially for multi-event games like the Olympics, to have some variations for this. And part of that you'll see in 2028, where the decision of overall for the sport was that it was better to go with a shorter distance of 1,500 meter rather than 2,000 meter. To preserve our position in the Olympics and to provide a better venue for us to present, even though it's under the standard 2,000 meter. So the World Rowing Council can take decisions to change and to accept a non-standard course for certain events. The depth should be at least 2 meters if the depth is uniform across all the lanes. If it is not, or if there's a lot of weeds or other things, it should be 3 meters at the shallowest depth. The width, minimally 95 meters for an international course, 110 meters wide for Olympic, Paralympic, World Championships, with an ideal of 150 meters. And the next couple of slides will go into what that entails. The regatta course should be fair and equal across all lanes. There shouldn't be any current, or if there is a current, it should be minimal and affect all lanes equally. The course should be sheltered and not have artificial or natural obstacles that create unequal conditions, such as blocking the wind for certain lanes but not others. And the course needs to be sheltered from the wind as much as possible, or have the prevailing winds be up and, straight down the course or straight up the course, rather than in a cross where it may affect one lane differently than the other. It should not be influenced by artificial or natural waves, and the banks should be designed to absorb and not reflect waves. Here you see a picture of an example in Bled, where there are wave arresters set next to the rock walls so that the waves don't bounce right out, but are absorbed and diminished by the wave arresters. So when we talk about the lanes, we talk about, for international regattas, the minimum width should be 95 meters. The lanes themselves should be between 12.5 and 15 meters wide. There can be 12-meter wide lanes in special cases where the course will not allow for the wider. For international regattas, we say 95 meters. This is 6 12.5 meter lanes, plus a 15-meter transit, so that the boats can go up alongside the course, either to the start or to the finish, or back to the pontoons, and then a 5 meters on the other side of the course. For World Rowing Championships, we would like to see 8 lanes minimally, and so 110 meters, and that's composed of the 8 12.5 meter lanes plus 5 meters on either side. If there is a low road where the media can drive alongside the course. If there is not a road for the media, then ideally we would like to see 150 meters so that we'd have 25 meters on either side, which will accommodate both the competitor boat traffic and the media boat traffic. So for international regattas, here you can see minimum of 12.5, 6 lanes, minimum 12.5 meters wide for each lane. But for the World Rowing Championships, we would have 8 lanes, which includes both the travel lanes and the media lanes. The final 250 meters should be buoys of a different color. The first 100 meters also different color, and then a different color buoy at each 250 meter mark on the lane lines. So when we talk about an Albano system, it is the system of lane lines and buoys that create the course. The lane lines are made up of buoys, preferably spaced 10 meters apart, but no more than 12.5 meters. The exception to that is the first 100 meters, where the buoys should be spaced 5 meters apart. The buoys should be soft, not hard, and they shouldn't be any larger than 15 centimeters in diameter. As we mentioned, the color for the first 100 meters, well, the color should be all the same, except a different color for the first 100 meters, a different color buoy at each 250 meter mark, and the last 250 meters should be a different color. There should be no buoys right on the start line or right on the finish line. And the reason for this is that we don't want anything to disrupt the view of the cameras seeing right to the start and the finish line. There should be distance markers, and we start counting at the start with 0 meters, and the finish is 2,000 meters. So you go from 0 to 2,000, and distance markers need to be at the 250, 500, 750, 1,000, 1,250, 1,500, and 1,700. Every 250 meters, there should be a distance marker. If the distance markers are on land, the recommended size is 2 meters wide by 1 meter high. But if they are floating on the water, a 1 meter cube, like the one shown in the picture here, is possible. The start and the finish lines need to be marked by a sign, as you see in the red circle here, that is right on the line, and the line is where the yellow changes to black. So half of it is yellow, half of it is black. The yellow is always on the start side. No matter where these signs are on the course, at the start, the finish, or even if they're at the intermediate marks, yellow should always be towards the start. Black should always be towards the finish. You go from day into night. A vertical wire, 1 millimeter thick, or it should be on the side opposite of the target, so you have something to line up with that yellow to black line, or possibly 2 vertical lines that line up with that, that are 40 to 50 centimeters apart. So going over the regatta course again, distance markers every 250 meters. At every 250, different color, and then the first 100 and the last 250, a different color. The lanes are usually numbered left to right. When you're at the start, looking down the course, lane 1 should be on your left. The highest number lane should be on your right, in this case, lane 8. However, there are some times when this is not followed, and that's due largely to media. Media likes to have lane 1 in the top and the higher lanes at the bottom, or vice versa there. So they have a preference. So sometimes that is changed, but this is the general convention, left to right, 1 through the highest number. As we mentioned, we used to have steering markers, steering aids, which were essentially signs behind each lane that were offset, so that if you lined up a line on them, you'd be in the middle of your lane. We no longer require that. Instead, the first 100 meters need to be a different color, and the buoys need to be spaced closer together. So this gives each of the athletes, as they're starting the race, a stronger, a more solid line than the 10 meters apart, a more solid line that they can use to line up their boat as they start the race. There used to be a 100-meter breakage rule, which basically said if there was breakage to equipment within the first 100 meters, the race would be stopped, and then they would deal with that breakage. For most of the racing, that is no longer in effect. The only place where we still have the breakage zone is for the Masters event, which has a 100-meter breakage rule. But they also have that if the breakage can't be fixed within 10 minutes, the race will run without the crew that suffered the broken equipment. But so for most racing, there is no more 100-meter breakage zone. Here you can see on this course, you have the red buoys for the first 100 meters. They're spaced 5 meters apart. Then they switch once you get past 100 meters to the yellow buoys on the course, which are 10 meters apart. And you can see at the 250-meter mark, we have the red line of red buoys there, and there's another one you can see further down if you look closely. There are the swim lines in the warm-up area, which provide for the warm-up area for the crews, and then a cool-down area. And then you can't see it on this picture, but there are red buoys for the last 250 meters on this course. It is the recommendation of World Rowing that for artificial courses, or where possible, that there be a separate lane for warming up and cooling down, like this one, the course at Eton is shown, where the warm up and cool down takes place in a separate channel, and then the boats can come across into the start area. This keeps the wash from the crews warming up separate from the race and doesn't affect the race. Now we're going to turn to the start zone. And as you can see the different pictures here, there are many different types of start zone. There are some that have actually what we call the start fingers or pontoons that are built into the land and will come out and slide out and are adjustable that way. There are some that have a solid bridge and adjustable fingers or pontoons here for the boats, and a place for the umpires to come out and join the race from the middle. There are some like this one in Bled where there are actually rails underneath the water, and the boat holding platforms are on those rails, and they can roll back and forth to help with the adjustment. And then here's at the bottom is another view from the side of pretty much the same type of thing as the top, only without the umpire cut out in the middle. So the start pontoons need to have the fingers or the pontoons that are adjustable. It can be moved back and forth so that they adjust so that the bows of the boats can be on the start line. And then if possible, it's ideal to have a cutout in the middle for the umpire's catamaran to join, and so that they'll join right in the middle of the race, and then a start tower that is connected to that. For World Rowing Championships, we have some additional requirements that the start bridge should be minimally 2 meters wide and connected to the land so that the officials, media, and technicians can get out onto the start bridge without a problem, without having to wait for boats, and readily accessible. For regattas with para events, if you remember when we went through the control commission, the rule for normal racing boats is a minimum length of 7.2 meters. However, the standard paraboat is only 6.3 meters. So if a regatta is going to have para events, those start pontoons or start fingers need to be adjustable to be able to both accommodate an 8 and have that bow of that 8 on the line, but also the paraboats, which are only 6.3 meters, have their bows also on the start line. There's a special requirement for World Rowing Masters Regatta. Because the Masters Regatta is many times run on about 3-minute centers between races, there's not enough time for crews to come around the sides of the pontoon to come in. So the Masters require the ability of the boats to come up between the lanes, between the boat holders, and get into their lanes to minimize the time it takes for them to get ready for their race. Also needed in the start area is each of the lane numbers should be clearly numbered so that the athletes, when they come into it, they can see which lane is which. And there needs to be the ability to show a yellow or red marker for each of the lanes if a crew has earned a yellow card or a red card, so that they have a visual marker of that. Turning to the start towers. Once again, start towers can come in many different shapes and sizes, but there are certain functional things that need to be the same for all of them. They should be 40 to 50 meters behind the start. Ideally, there should be a covered platform that should be 3 to 6 meters above the water level. This will give the starter a clear and unobstructed view of the entire start area, including being able to see the liner's hut. So that raising up and then making sure that there's nothing blocking the starter is very important. There needs to be a large clock, ideally showing hour and minutes, not seconds. So it should just show hour and minutes. A yellow flashing light, which marks the 2-minute warning. When we're within 2 minutes of start, it's a signal that all boats, traffic on the course needs to stop moving. A whiteboard or blackboard of something that we can write changes to the schedule on if we need to communicate that. And then radio or telephone communications between the judge at start, the starter, the judge at finish, control commission, the president of the jury, that links all of those together. Some additional equipment, the start list, microphone, clock, binoculars, chart with the blade colors, spare watches, alignment indication. Sometimes there'll be white light or red for both alignment and false start, ideally. And then the start buttons or start system for starting. And then there should be, in case it's needed, the automatic systems fail, that we have a manual loudspeaker, red flag, and bell, so that in case the automatic thing fail, we can still provide our service of starting the races for the athletes. The aligner's hut is another part of the start area. And once again, like the starter's tower, it can come in many different shapes and sizes, sometimes even equipped for TV and media cameras on top. It needs to be right on the start line, exactly 15 to 40 meters off the first lane, minimally 1 meter above the water, so that it has a view that it can see the bows over one another, so that you're not looking through the bows. There should be weather protection for at least 4 people in the aligner's hut. Typically, the aligner, judge at start, and then technicians dealing with the timing and the systems. And then a radio link between the aligner and the officials, the people holding the boats on the start pontoons, so that the aligner can give them instructions on how to move the pontoons and the boats so that the bows are on the start line. And ideally, these should be silent. There should be earphones for the people on the pontoon, so that the athletes aren't hearing this, but the people holding the boats are getting the instructions from the aligner. Um, the judge at start always sits in front of the aligner and closest to the course with the aligner behind. Here you can see an example where the judge at start is in front, the aligner is behind. They both have this screen that will freeze when the start command is given so that you can instantaneously see whether there has been a false start. And then in cases where we are using what's called the alignment control system, which are the boots or clogs that come up over the bows, there'll be another special screen that will be in there for the aligner so that they can see whether the bows of the boats are in those clogs or shoes, and see that up close. Here you can see for the clog system, alignment control system. We use this at World Rowing Championships, definitely at the Olympics, sometimes at World Cups. It is these clear plastic boots that come up and hold the bow in place. It is holding the bow in the center of the lane. It is not necessarily lined up so that the bows are right on the start line. We still need the judge at start and the aligner to take care of that, and the judge at start to address that. Because sometimes these are on floating or attached to the course and floating, they may move a little bit. So the aligner and judge at start still need to do their jobs even when we're using this, the alignment control system. The neutral position for the alignment control system is with these boots down and in the water, and then the starter will press a button that will raise them up, and then they automatically drop when the start commands are given. So they're connected to that start system. For world rowing events, we will use a light start system, which should have 3 states. One is neutral, another one is red light, and then green lights and a tone to mark the start. There's actually probably a 4th state where if there's a false start, a red flashing light and a continuous beeping horn tone signal. And these lights need to be able to go from red to neutral to reset without having to go through green in case it's needed. Other requirements in the start zone: a repair pontoon that's used for emergency boat repairs. There needs to be spare bow numbers and GPS units in case one gets lost or gets put on incorrectly on the way to this, when it's leaving or at the start. It's great to have adequate toilet facilities for the people up there because sometimes you're working long days and it helps. And then tents for volunteers, officials, and media that can protect them in case that's needed. As we mentioned earlier, we used to have steering controls behind each lane. Now it's the first 100 meters where the buoys are a different color and the buoys are spaced 5 meters apart. Now we're going to turn our attention to between the start and the finish. And on a championship level course, we will have timing huts at each 500 meters. The timing huts need to be able to traditionally hold technicians that would mark and record each boat when they cross that timing line at each of the 500 meters. This is now many times being replaced by a Finnish camera type system. But we still need to have those at each 500 meters so we can record the time and the positions as the boats come across. And that timing hut need to have communication between the start and the finish. We will have many times sponsor banners along the land or the course. For the ones that are floating on the water, they are on kind of a triangular structure, a blow-up structure. And so we've nicknamed them kind of the Toblerones because they look a lot like the Swiss chocolate candy bars, the Toblerones. They are placed along the outside of the course. And just be careful if you are stationed along the course that sometimes they will have these distance markers on it, but it isn't actually always the true distance marker because this is on a floating structure. The real distance marker will be probably in the background somewhere like this one here is. The finish line, like the starting line, is marked by the red, yellow, and black marker and a vertical line that's directly in front of the judges. There should be red flags on the outside of the course at the starting line, but no buoys right on the finish line. I'm sorry, red buoys on the finish line. No buoys right on the finish line. And in many cases, we'll have what we call a bubble line. And the bubble line is not actually on the finish line. It is slightly beyond the finish line, so that the athletes and spectators will know when the boats have crossed the finish line, but it's slightly beyond because we don't want that bubble line to interfere anyway with the cameras and the finish line cameras, the photo finish cameras. The Finnish Tower, like the other towers, can come in many shapes and sizes. Here you see Beijing, one that was built for the Moscow 1980 Olympics, where the Finnish Tower is actually built into the roof of the grandstand, the Brandenburg Tower here, and then another tower that's actually in Korea. The Finnish Tower should have at least 3 levels, one for the regatta organization and technology, a second level where the timing and jury sits, and it's best if the timing and the jury are in the same room so that they can communicate clearly and easily together, a commentary area, and then there should be places for at least 2 Finnish cameras that will independently monitor and be our primary and secondary timing system. So here you see an example of the 2 cameras there. The timing system should show at least 1/100th of a second accuracy. We like to have the 2 cameras because sometimes, because of the light and water reflections, it interferes with the clear image of one, but if you look at the other one, you can see a more precise image. And if you go with the second one, all of the times need to be taken off of that second one for the event. The timing system starts with the start system. So it is connected, and when the starter presses the start button, it also starts the timing system. At the finish, there should be a result for World Championships. A results or video board should be placed where the spectators can see it. It's also great if it's positioned or a separate board is positioned so that the athletes can see it at the end of the race and know how they have performed during that race. We want, near the finish line, a victory pontoon. Should be at least 3 meters wide and 18 to 20 meters long, placed near the grandstand so that boats can pull in there after the race, after the championship A finals, and receive their medals. We're now turning to the Control Commission, and one of the functions of the Control Commission is boat weighing. There should be a boat weighing area that is protected from the wind. And the reason for this is the wind blowing on the boats can affect the weights on the scales. The scales should be placed on a solid surface. Typically, we have scales that have 2 kind of slings or 2 scales that are tied together so that the boats can be placed in them. The scales need to be certified, weighing to 1/10 of a kilogram, and both for athletes and boat weighing to 1/10 of a kilogram. And there needs to be certified test weights so that we can test it. In this picture here, you can see these black things here. Those are the certified test weights. And the weights from the boats need to be combined with a digital readout with a printing capability so that we can print results if needed. For athlete weighing, it should be in a location where it is able to separate into the official weighing area and then a separate athlete weighting area. The official weighing area, we would like to see 2 scales and then a desk or table for the officials doing the weigh-in where they can do their paperwork and keep the books. If you are assigned as athlete weighing, it's great to take the certified test scale and make sure all of the scales are weighing the same when you first start the area. Athletes will weigh in the weighing area. They can use the test scale and then be called in for the official weighing. In the control commission area near the pontoons, there needs to be traffic pattern signs, and they should show both the racing and training traffic patterns. And they should need to be clearly posted near the control commission and the inbound, outbound pontoons. There should be directions or signs for the inbound and outbound and no use when there shouldn't, and when the pontoons can't be used, and we'll show that in the next slide. And it's great when the training times can also be posted so that the athletes and coaches know that. Here is an example. You can see the signs, traffic control signs, where you have a pontoon that has the green arrow showing that this is the pontoon that athletes should be using when they go out onto the water. This one has a red arrow on this side. There's a green arrow on the other side, or the red circle on this side, and a green arrow on the other side, which means that this is the pontoon for coming back in off the water. And you'll notice that there is also a way here with the barricade that can be put in front of the dock to close it. Okay. And then there needs to be adequate boat storage facilities for the boats that are going to be used in the regatta. This happens to be Penrith in Australia, where they have a very large field behind the pontoons the athletes, the boats can be stored in. For other requirements, umpire catamarans, if there is a road alongside the course, the recommendation is that there be 5 + 1 spare umpire catamarans available for the event. If there is not a road alongside the course, then it should be 6 + 1 for courses on a lake. Rescue launches, there should be 5 to 6 during racing, and they should be also rescue launches out on the water during training sessions. The specific location and placement of the rescue launches is dependent on the event and the venue. And then in many cases, we also have media catamarans that will be out on the lake during the event. Even though we are going more and more towards electronic results and reporting it out on the web, we do still have requirements for a copy and distribution center for both the team officials and officials, and also for the media and spectators. And then there should be changing room and shower rooms for athletes, and then ergometers available for the athletes to warm up on and to cool down on. That's the end of the overview for the courses. Are there any questions on this? I am not seeing any questions right now. I'm going to stop this recording so that we can break it out from the rest, if I can do that.